All right, we are recording. So welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. It's good to see you all here. Brittany, welcome back. We missed you. So I wrote a blog this morning about a very common spiritual bon mot. Can I use that word? Bon mot, meaning kind of a quote, like a saying. That quote or saying is, accept the moment. How many have heard that? Accept the moment. That's all you got to do. That's your problem. You guys are not accepting the moment. Well,
So who is it that would accept the moment?
thank you. If I had a bell and a bird that dropped a prize down, Alice, you would win it. Well, actually, you wouldn't win it. But...
Sorry, I've just been listening to Jim Newman too much.
Good. No, it's beautiful. So yeah, there is no one to accept or not accept the moment. All right, well, thanks for coming. In a way, though, that is the whole message. There's no you inside that body to do anything, to like anything, to not like anything, to make anything happen. Everything is just spontaneously happening, but it's not being done by anybody. So that's the radical nature of this message. Because every other spiritual message, there's a getting to some place. You know, I just need to, well, I don't know, whatever the story is. But here what's being shared is there is no one to do anything. And shockingly, there never was. It's not that the me was there, but you'll slowly, begin to make it go away. It's that the me was never there. There is no me. It's an idea. It's energetic. Well, Jim, there you go, Alice. Jim talks about energetic contraction. It's a sense of self, a sense of center. And that's the suffering, because as soon as I'm here, then there's everything that's not me. So there's me and not me, two, divided. And then the me is trying to somehow join back together to merge with the infinite. It's all a complete story. There never was a me to merge. I'm not saying that it doesn't feel like it. I understand. And you know what? That's not even a problem. So what if it feels like a me? Who cares? It's just a feeling. Doesn't mean there's a little entity inside that body. So what we're talking about is a resonance. And if this is rejected, that's completely fine. That's just what's happening. If there is a resonance with this message, then that's also just what's happening. So we can go into this. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to unmute, jump in. You know, it's funny.
I'm just,
Oh, go ahead, Faith.
I was just going to say, I'm incredibly grateful for this quote unquote message, because I've grown up in a, like it was a Christian, evangelical, fundamental Christian doctrine. And this is just, yeah, well, it's indescribably different and beautiful compared with what I've been raised on, where you spend your life, where I've spent my life being afraid of doing the wrong thing because I'll go to hell.
Yeah.
So this is just unbelievably sweet. Words don't describe how sweet it is.
Oh, how lovely. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Faith, because I actually I actually became a born again Christian not once but twice when I was younger.
Yeah.
So,
I know that.
just to make sure. No, but it just makes sense, right? Because you're so desperate, you're in so much pain that you're just seeking, and you assume, well, somebody's got to know the answer. Well, maybe this group does, or this religion does.
Michael, can I just bring this into a situation and unpack it a little bit? Because I haven't been challenged by anything for a long time, but I'm just going to read you a message that my daughter-in-law sent me. And the Ben in this is my son. And she's messaged me, and I've woken up to this message, and she's saying, just letting you know that Ben has had an accident when he took Augie for a drive, which is my grandson, in the car to get him to sleep. They are both fine, but Ben is very emotional and is experiencing a lot of anxiety. We're going to get it sorted tomorrow. His car's a write-off. He hit a parked car. He fell asleep at the wheel. Now, I got that message in the morning, and automatically my body sort of went into some sort of a shock. My heart started racing, and, I could hear that, oh no, in my head. So the body automatically reacts to something like that. Yes. But it was very much witnessed. And it's like something gets sent straight back to witness what the body is going through in that moment. And of course, I got up and I just went into motion, and I rang and said, I'm coming, I'll look after the baby while you take him to the doctors, and just did what I could. And I didn't sleep that night though, because my head was just full of, like, there's no way I could stop thoughts. So I just let them go. And there wasn't a lot of sleep happening. So I just watched, you know, crap on Netflix to just, so I wouldn't. And I'm just the next morning when I was really tired, I just thought, wow, look at that tsunami of stuff that happens. And I guess there was a little bit of questioning, how should I react? But I didn't feel like there was anyone suffering, reacting. It was just seemed to be all automatic. And there was no trying to stop it, basically. So, you know, if anyone wants to comment on that, I'd be grateful and unpack it a little bit.
I actually relate to that. I've had similar experience recently. I mean, not anywhere near that. And I'm sorry, you know, to me, it feels like I should say I'm sorry, and I hope that your son is okay. But I had an experience where I was on a call, a conference call with like 50 other colleagues, all women, by the way. It was a women's networking event. And some news was delivered to us, and I had a reaction, which was angry. And I could witness the reaction in my body. And before I knew it, I had unmuted myself. It was a Zoom, and I was speaking in a way that wasn't so pleasant, not very professional. And really, really thinking to myself, like, I'm watching my chest. I can feel this tightness in my chest, and my body was like electrified, and I just like a tiger lashing out, you know, that thing we talk about in psychotherapy, fight, flight, or freeze. And I was fighting back. There was nothing I could do about it. It was just happening.
And I think in spiritual circles, there's a lot of idea that things like that happen and you don't react to them. And yeah, it's just not true. The body goes through whatever it's going to go through. It's and that's it. And you're just sort of there watching it all happen. But there is a sense of, I don't even know what the word is, like detachment from it, I suppose, in a way. And it's like you can zoom in or zoom out. It's like there's a choice about zooming into it and getting pulled into it, or just being neutral in the looking, and which is, you know, quite a helpful thing in a situation like that, I guess. But there's no storytelling about it now, and it's gone, it's past, and it's just moment by moment from now on. But yeah, it was interesting experience to sort of watch and see.
Yeah, you won't hear me say, which I've heard other, you know, speakers say, that this is the end of suffering. I don't know. Suffering can arise. The body can be in angst, just as you were describing, Diane. That is unpleasant news. So of course there's going to be a reaction. The distinction is, when there's no me there, it's a completely different experience, because the me feels like A, it's happening to it, and then B, what action can it take to alleviate this? And as you said, there's just what's happening. So
Let it happen.
well, that's what I'm saying. But that was my blog this morning. There's actually no you in there to stop it.
Yeah.
That was my observation, Diane, was there was no resistance to it at all.
Yeah.
You know, when you were telling that story, there was just, you just let it all happen, and there was no trying to get out of it. That was great.
And sometimes even allowing it embraces the feeling, because it comes from obviously attachment, because it's your child. I mean, we hear about people having car accidents every day, and there's no emotion, but when it's your child, it's completely different. There's such a lot of attachment there.
Yeah.
But even if there, it sounds like there was no storytelling or very little storyfying in that, Diane. But even if there's a story happening at times, that's all part of it too, isn't it? The stories can be in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, my advice to him when I got there was, it's happened, because he was just like, kept thinking about it and thinking what could have happened and da da da. And I said, stop, just don't go there. It's happened. Just go into the motion of doing what you've got to do. You know, ring the insurance company, go to the doctors, just be grateful that you're both alive. Basically, that was it. Don't think about it anymore. Which is not easy to do.
Well, that's
Not
because, as we know, the me, as I always talk about, the me, if you're a me, then guilt and blame.
That's what's happening with my son, and I can see that. Yeah, guilt and blame. Yeah, on himself. Yeah. And that can go on for a long time if you
Oh,
let
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, decades. I mean, you can think back to childhood, things you still regret. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
my question is, how did he wind up behind the wheel and sleepy?
Yeah. Well, they've got a 2-year-old. They don't get much sleep. He's not a good sleeper. And they take turns at taking him for a drive sometimes. So not anymore though. Never again.
Yeah, well, sleep deprivation was definitely part of my early childhood experience with my kids. And I remember driving tired and I had to open the windows.
It was 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, I suppose. But I said, you're supposed to put the child to sleep, Ben, not you. That was
Now you tell me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just glad everybody's okay.
they're fine.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So when you tell someone to stop thinking about it and look what you need to do, I find that doesn't really work for me when somebody tells me to stop thinking.
And you want to think twice.
I just wait. What is there? Because who is it that's stopping thinking? I don't know. That just struck me because people will say that to me, stop doing this or stop this. Can we just have a little discussion maybe about that?
Well, I find that you're aware that your attention goes to thought.
Okay.
And when you're aware of that, you have the capacity, there's a function of pulling it back to now. That's what I did like a million times that day. The night time, it was just, I'd realized that I'm going into thinking about him and pull my attention back. And I just kept doing that. And I don't think there's an I doing that. It's just a function
Right.
that you can do. And that was a lot of my early practice, if you want to call it that, in the early days, was just pulling attention back to now. Simple as that, as often as I could do that, which over time paid off because my attention stayed more, didn't tend to go. I don't know why or how that happens, but there was a change in my perception and my sense of okayness, because I wasn't entertaining illusion, basically, because that's what it is. Thought. Yeah.
Very helpful, Diane. Thanks.
But for someone who's never done that, it's a big ask because you're unconscious when you're in that train of thought. That's the difference.
Yes.
Like, how often do you go off into a scenario and you're gone for 5 minutes before you realize? Once you realize, you're present again.
Yes.
That's why it's good to practice this just in normal life.
Yeah, don't wait for a drama.
Yeah. If you're given to practice, we don't talk a lot about practice here a lot of the time, but we know that can be really, really useful too.
Heresy.
Yeah, I hope this isn't getting recorded.
I find it, when you get taken over by something that's happened or any sort of strong emotion, just watching it, that helps to me to create the proper perspective to not get swept away. The distance. As Stan says, the practice creates the space for that.
I will,
Otherwise known as meditation in a very general sense. But go ahead, Michael.
well, I mean, I wouldn't really call this a practice because I don't really, but I find DIANE, like when that, and this is for all of us, because the mind can get agitated. You know, there can be this feeling of, you know, and I find just naturally, I just tend to agree with whatever it says, to not argue with it, to not try and fix it or change it or disagree with it or make it wrong. In fact, just for my own amusement, I'll sometimes get on its side and go full into it and completely agree, like, absolutely, I should have known better. What the hell was I thinking? Boy. And the funny part is I end up laughing because I know there's no control. So I know it's all bogus. But it's so different than resisting the thought, because the resisting the thought is in a way being disagreeing, saying, no, I don't want this. The thing is, when there's no me there, there's no one actually there to be hurt.
Yeah, I've noticed that often, like I've done what Charles has done, you know, and I've watched my thoughts, but then I've realized that very subtly that was a way to resist. Like I was watching them in order to let them go, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So you know, like I was resisting because I wanted them to go away, and the watching was the method or the apparatus I was using to hopefully make them go away.
Nice.
And it was like, whoa, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, you can watch your thoughts, but it really has to be a true watching with no, what's the word I'm looking for? Agenda, no hidden agenda, so to speak.
Yeah, I like the idea of agreeing with the the voice in my head that keeps accusing me. Like it goes on forever and ever. And I like the idea of agreeing with it because then it's got nowhere to go.
Yeah, right? It's hard to argue with someone who agrees with you.
Mm.
So Faith, just for fun, can you give us an example of just one of the repetitive thoughts?
Oh, like you should be more careful when you're driving because I think you just ran over something or other. And yeah, or you caused an accident because you didn't give way to that person. And so I have to say, yeah, maybe I did. Oprah used to say when those voices were accusing her, she used to say, "So what?"
Who is this?
Yeah. Oprah.
Oprah.
If Oprah Winfrey,
Yeah.
like, yeah. So her thing, when you get that accusation, just say, "So what?"
Mm-hmm.
But I think agreeing with it takes it even further.
Yeah, I agree, Faith, because, and I sometimes say, so what? You'll hear me say, like, you feel like a me, so what? But there is something funny that the so what doesn't have, because if you really, and I mean, there is kind of a note to hit about agreeing, like you were saying, Corey. It's not like I'm agreeing to make it change. I'm full on going, yeah, I'm an idiot. I can't help but smile. Oh, somebody just joined. Oh, see who this is. Bill. Okay. So yeah, it's the not, because it does take two to argue, right? If one is silent, then who is that one voice arguing with? Itself. It's not you. And that's really the point. that voice in the head isn't you. It comes and goes.
Is the voice in the head just conditioning?
Yeah. And everybody's conditioning is unique to them. So that's why, you know, the me will say, well, you did it wrong. And what they mean is you didn't do it like I would do it. Right? That's what I mean when I said they did it wrong. It's because I'm saying, well, you didn't do it how I would do it. And every me is saying that. So it's no wonder there's so much conflict. Because if I'm right as a me, then you have to be wrong if I'm right. So that's the trap of needing to be right, which to me, you know.
I run into this all the time with my 26 and 29-year-old. They both insist that they're right.
Mm-hmm.
And mom, what do you, and then they'll lambaste me and what do you have to say for yourself? And I'm like, nothing. I just not gonna add anything. They just, I guess they want to be validated. They're insecure about their position. Shakespeare said, you know, thou doth protest too much. You know, if you have to prove a point, who you're really trying to prove it to.
Yeah. But you know, as this message resonates, you realize people have no choice in the way they act. They're not doing it either.
Forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah, and Joan, you use the word conditioning. So we all have different conditioning. So to expect someone else to handle a situation like you would.
I know, but I conditioned them.
What is the you that did that conditioning?
And
Yeah, she's not here right now. I'm the stand-in.
You know, again, I have to credit Tim Kliss because he really was the first speaker that I heard talk about the sadness. When this is really seen, you know, so many speakers talk about, you know, bliss and love, light and Kundalini and chakra, but there can be immense sadness when it really hits you, like in your gut, that every thought, every feeling, every emotion you've ever had was never yours. I'm sorry? Bill?
I think he was talking to somebody else.
Oh, okay.
So to go back to the voice, the commentary in the head, which is conditioning, of course. Everything that we experience is conditioned. But the key, the important point here of the aspect of the conditioning that makes the suffering is this belief that this commentary, you can think of the commentary as like a crawl that's going across the screen, right? Ongoing commentary on the action. Okay, the key conditioning is this belief that this commentary has some importance and that I have to pay attention to it and I need to do something with it because it's going to affect the whole picture. Okay, that's the central conditioning. Okay, is that I'm involved with this commentary speaking to me and I have to respond to it. Okay, it's like if you were watching a movie and then there was some kind of, you know, crawl going on and you knew it was like news that was continually feeding you information about something you didn't care about and had nothing to do with anything. You wouldn't pay attention to it. It would be pretty easy to just watch the movie. You would forget about it. you know, and that's essentially what we're talking about. And, you know, if you know that that's talking to a me that doesn't exist, then that's all done. But then we're also talking about how that's, you know, it may be really, really helpful to go through a process of practicing to, you know, decondition me from, to wean me of this attention. And that's kind of what we're talking about. But again, it's just one thing. It's just, what do I need to do to remember that it, no matter what is being, you know, what little letters and words and, you know, information or whatever is going crawling across the screen, it's irrelevant. And the thing that's going to catch me is when I get clicked into that, and then I start to think that I'm a me, the feeling of me gets stronger, and then this need to do something about it and figure out what's the right thing to do. Anyway, I'm kind of babbling on a bit here, but does this make sense? In other words, it's all about remembering. And that's why I say it's good to practice this, you know, just in normal life, because we don't need a crisis for this to happen. It's happening all the time, 24/7. This can, yeah. Anyway, Michael, you want to step in and I'm not getting any help from the.
No, Dan, you're right. I mean, when you really look at it, that voice in the head is not even yours. It's just we've talked about this. It's
No.
voice. It's a voice.
Right.
It's an energy.
Yeah.
It's not your energy. Prove it, you know, prove it. You know, what about that voice is saying it's yours? There's nothing that says it's yours. So I think investigating that.
The main conditioning that we're talking about is the being conditioned to this idea that there's something called mine.
Right.
That's voice. And I mean, that's the crux of this whole thing. Is kind of what
I mean, the thoughts are included in that my, right? My thoughts, my son, my car, my thoughts. It's the my is the problem. Because then if they're just thoughts and you're not sucked in.
Yeah. It's like the birds chirping, they're sounds. And
To me, there's what's been striking me lately is there's a lot of me's I'm not. You know, there's a chorus inside of different aspects of personality driven by stuff, and I'm not any of that.
Right.
You know, there's my physical body, I'm not that. You know, it's my electrical body, I'm not that. There's the thoughts, as you've pointed out. There's the subtle body, you know. There's the will. There's consciousness itself. There might even be collective consciousness that I'm not, you know. So there's a lot that you're not. And to me, the more that you can be aware of the whole big picture and unravel that in layers, there's more beauty there besides just the thinking, just getting beyond the thinking.
But those things that you mentioned, aren't those just thoughts?
I don't think so.
Collective consciousness, not a concept or just an idea, a thought. The
No,
subtle
I
body, the
don't think-
will, those are just thoughts.
I don't think so. I mean, electricity, your electrical body, the stuff in your leg, you know, those aren't just thoughts, those are there.
Well,
I would say electricity is a label, and we don't really know what that is.
yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah, that's something that the me will always try and claim something as it. Nothing. That's the shocker. That's why I say every thought you've ever had since childhood, it can be very heartbreaking, because all those little moments, like your first kiss, you know, that I know for me, my first kiss, I probably have thought about thousands of times. It was so, you know, there's only one first time, you know, and when you realize that that just happened, that everything just happens spontaneously and there's no me, not only is there no me there in you, there's no me anywhere. So suddenly this whole thing begins to take on a completely different color when you realize it's all just happening spontaneously and no one's doing it's mind-blowing.
I really liked what Corey said then. It just, as you said, as you challenged thinking or whatever, however, whatever it was you said, it was just a sort of a relief inside, that a comfort, something. It feels so good to not exist, to be wonderful, great
Yeah.
news.
That's the whole point. That's all it is. Because the alternative to what you just said is to be deeply involved and planted, like I was saying last week, in this me thing. And then I have this huge, complicated, complex job of taking all of these little strands and threads of all, there's just that Charles was talking about, all these little infinitely complex aspects of everything, which, and tying it all together, because the me is trying to build this like tapestry out of all of this content, which we call stories, right? Which are completely, building on and building more and more stories, more complicated all the time, but trying to make this into this thing called my happy life, my okay life, a life that's, where the problems are solved. That's the me. And it's no fun. It does not feel good. It does not go anywhere. It's just suffering. So that's why we talk about just cutting it off at the core. Not cutting it off, but seeing that me, which when that me which is holding all this together, right? It's just the idea of the me. Anyway, I want to hear more from you guys. I'm talking a lot.
But I will say one thing, that when I'm affronted or accosted by a lot of story judgment towards myself, I still find it can be helpful to take myself out of the head into the body, which I mentioned some months ago that I learned through Scott Killaby, was to feel my body, feel my feet on the floor, feel my legs on the chair. Somehow that, for me, is helpful in reducing that head noise when it's extreme.
It takes you out of the story, because there is no story in the body. I mean, you can tell stories about the body, then you're back in the head. But the body, the feeling of the feet on the ground, or that's just what, there's no story there. So that also is a really good practice. If we're talking about practices, spend a lot of time wherever you can spend that's not in the head is good. The head is telling a story right now about what this is, something is here that's real. And we can't say what it is. The head is telling all kinds of stories. It's always available to just endlessly but there's nothing to do with all those stories. The me is always grabbing it and trying to do something with it, but that isn't real. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't amount to anything. That's why we call it the hamster wheel.
Yeah, it's it's sort of recognizing that, and we can, like right now, if you have, if a thought appears saying, you know, this is the best moment that's ever existed, or this is the worst moment that's ever existed, the moment doesn't give a shit what you think about it. Let that sink in. So that's the freedom. The freedom is being able to think whatever you want because it doesn't matter.
What is this moment that doesn't give a shit?
This right here, life. Whatever this is, and we don't know what it is. Can't say. It's a mystery. And the me always is in knowing. So the me isn't, there's no mystery to the me. The me thinks it knows a bunch of stuff. And the first thing the me knows is I'm here. That's the first illusion. I'm here. There's no I and there's no here.
So when Diane hears that her grandson's been in a car wreck and she gets upset and there's no Diane, seems to me the moment gives a shit.
I don't know. You tell us, Diane. Do you get the feeling that this moment cares that your son was in an accident?
No, not at all.
No, I was talking about that moment. He's not here anymore.
Yeah. No, that's what was happening.
Yeah.
And then there can be reaction to it. And that's just what's happening too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're talking about a story. And first of all, I mean, the story that Diane related is a hugely fortunate and wonderful story. I mean, right? Her son was driving with his son, child, and fell asleep. I mean, what could have happened in that situation? But apparently, they're okay. Hopefully, they will be.
He was lucky he hit another car that absorbed the impact.
Right.
Because a policeman who's a friend of his said if you'd hit a power pole, you'd be gone. So I said, think about that. That's just fortunate, I guess. So what can you do?
But when you hear news like that on the phone, I mean, the body is going to react to the situation. I mean, we don't. I mean, you would not want it otherwise, right? You wouldn't be alive, right? Is that something we want? I mean, this is not a problem that the body has reactions, which we call human, to events that happen, and all kinds of. And usually they're complicated and complex. You know, they're not just all one thing. But I mean, when something like that happens, of course, you're going to freak out. Your mind is going to go all different places, and that's fine. But where's the problem in there? I mean, life, when Michael said life doesn't care, another way we could say is life doesn't see a problem in anything, right?
No, he said life doesn't give a shit. That's a big difference in saying it's not a problem.
Okay, I adapted a little, but
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the difference. That's a big difference to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where it goes into spiritual bypassing. That's where you risk spiritual bypassing and say, you know, life doesn't give a shit. This moment doesn't give a shit. Sometimes this moment gives a shit. And you're in that moment.
Well, I'm not denying that, like Diane said and Dan said, there's a bodily reaction. So if you get bad news, if you find out, you know, your car was hit, then naturally you're going to that's not, you know, that's not pleasant news. You're going to have to do insurance and, you know, get it fixed. It's perfectly natural, guys, for the body to respond however it responds. It's just not yours.
Right. But it gives a shit. Whatever it was, whatever that moment is, gives a shit.
Okay.
It's full of, I mean, you know,
It's
when
full of giving a shit.
when your grandson was born, when your son was born, you know, gave a shit.
All right.
Moments are real. They have a significance.
Well,
Even if the story isn't real or the problems aren't real or
okay.
But how can a moment be real if it doesn't exist? I mean, like that moment of you just saying it gives a shit is already gone. The only thing we remember, the only reason it exists is in each of our minds, and we probably each have a different perspective of what it was.
That's
well,
right.
I'm not arguing for an objective truth.
Well, the question to ask, or what you could ask is, who am I actually? Because this is what we come here to talk about. Who am I? Am I the me, or am I something else? Or am I not anyone? Am I more like life? In other words, am I a specific story? What me is a specific story. It has one perception of what is happening, and then it attaches to that, and it constructs an experience all around this very specific point of view and a specific version of what's happening and what it means. Okay, now that's what we say doesn't exist. There is no specific version of what's happening, of what life is. So this is what we're talking about: losing the attachment, the belief, the you know, that I am this thing called this specific story, because
Right.
that is what the me is. Okay.
But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there's a
Yes.
lot of fun to be had
Mhm.
watching
Yeah.
the movie and
Yeah.
enjoying your son's birth and feeling the
Yeah.
fear and the.
Yeah. Michael, can you give me some support?
Yeah, I would say it's the opposite. I would say, this is just my experience, the less Michael, the more enjoyable. And I can't really explain it, but when I'm not there, the moment's free to be as it is, and there's no one here complaining about it. But if Michael would be on the scene, right? If a me is on the scene, it's going to have opinions. How could it not? Because like Dan was saying, the me is a perspective. It's a position.
And it's a solid perspective. It's
Right.
yeah.
But
And
this
there
doesn't,
is-
I guess I'm sorry, Michael. Well, you just hit the nail on the head to me. The difference is really between experiences and opinions. You know,
right.
experiences are gorgeous.
Yes.
Opinions, forget it.
Right. And you're saying we don't want to bypass experience.
Right.
Yes. Well, that's very good. We're not saying to bypass experience.
When you say it doesn't give a shit, you could say that's not having an opinion, or you could say, you know, it's denying the essential characteristic of the experience that imbues you with fear or whatever it was, right? So
I'm saying that, and it's fine, Charles. I'm not, you don't have to, agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying that if you notice this moment, if we were playing, let's say that all of us were, together to play Trivial Pursuit rather than having this non-duality Zoom meeting, do you get the impression that the moment would care?
well, again, what is the moment? What is the moment to care? I mean, I guess that's where
Well, I don't know. You had a problem with it, so you tell me.
I had a problem with the idea that, right.
Can I just say,
What is
for
the
me,
moment to care?
All ideas are a problem.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Diane.
for me, it's the moment is the space in which whatever's happening is happening, and the space doesn't care about what's happening in it.
There you go. Bingo.
That was good.
Thank you, Diane. Yeah, that's the paradox. The moment never changes, and yet it's ever changing.
I love the idea that God doesn't care, because which to me is of the same, saying the same sort of thing. I'm not trying to say that God is real, but for me, who's been raised and brought up with God caring about absolutely everything, to come to hear that God doesn't care is such good news, so refreshing, breath of fresh air, you know? Life doesn't care, God doesn't care, what? It's just wonderful news.
Faith, you're great. You're so great. Yeah, it's funny. The me is so cocked up that it's so confused. Listen to this. On the one hand, the me saying there's this God, and then the other thing is, right, when something happens that we don't like, well, why is this happening? Well, wait a second. You just said there was a God, and if God's all knowing, then you shouldn't be having any problems because it's all God, but yet you're having a problem with God. So you see the conundrum you get into and blame? In a way, God is just the human's way to blame. I can either, if I have good fortune, I can give the credit to God, oh, God is so magnificent and all this. And if I have bad fortune, you know, I can blame God. God doesn't like me.
I was going to go for Adam and Eve, but all right.
I mean, to me, like, you know, yesterday after the Boulder shootings, right? I mean, everyone has to call everybody and make sure that they're still alive, right? Everyone's got to tap their friend networks and make sure that we're still there. And you know, my experience through that is not pleasant or unpleasant, but it's full of care, and care is kind of in the air. Sometimes care is in the air and the moment is pregnant with care. Maybe the space doesn't care inherently, but those that you're around care, and you kind of feel it. And I mean, things happen, right? And there's more to existence than meets the eye. I think we can all appreciate that. And sometimes care is the spirit of the day.
Why is it that people are more attracted to sensationalizing bad news when there's so many wonderful humanitarian things happening, random acts of kindness
Guys,
happening?
Joan, I'm sorry, I have to cut you off. We're
Okay.
not, that's not what we're talking about. I really, because we're going to wrap up here and I don't want to leave. I want to be as clear as I can be. You guys are on your own. I just, you know, I'm just sharing. That's all story, guys. And story doesn't affect what happens. The mind comes in afterwards and makes up a story, but it's always a day late and a dollar short. Because by the time the mind has thought of what's happening, it's already moved on. Whatever the mind is constructed that you think is happening isn't happening. This is always fresh and new. So what the hell could you be holding on to that's real?
Well, I don't think, you know, anything I said is contradictory to that at all. But you know, there's more than mind. There's emotion, and
yeah. All I'm saying, Bill, is you don't need a me to have emotions. You don't need a me for anything. That's what this whole non-duality is saying. The me is the credit taker, whether good or bad, whether positive or negative. The me doesn't exist. It's an illusion. Everything is happening spontaneous. I'm telling you guys, this is such a mind blower that until your mind is blown, you haven't seen it. It's so persistent, the illusion that I'm a me and I'm real. But you may get glimpses. There may be little openings where you're getting a sense of, you know, what if this is just happening as it happens?
And I was interested to hear that Tim Cliss said that when his me got out of the way, he was more compassionate.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I,
Because the problem here is that the me does not know. As me, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what's supposed to be going on. I don't know. But I act like I do. The me is playing God. I put myself in the position of the one who does know and who knows how things should be. And that's the big problem. That's the mistake. Let's say, okay, maybe there is something called God's perspective, if we just want to put it in that kind of, poetic term. But God's perspective, if there's such a thing, it sees everything, which we can't even conceive of, right? I mean, I'm just kind of anthropomorphizing just to make the point. But the me is playing God with my knowledge and my agenda and my little perspective. And then I'm doing whatever I can do to try, because I feel like I have the job of making things be the way they're supposed to be, because I know. And that's crazy, right? This is the thing we're talking about. But it doesn't deny what you're talking about, which is, yes, things happen, and there's all hurt and fear and everything else, and that goes on. But the question is, is there a me there that's believing a story about it and playing God in the middle of it? So
Hey, Dan, you're hot today. I don't know why you keep on making excuses for yourself.
Oh, okay, good. I just feel like I'm a little extra caffeine or something.
Thank you, Dan. I found the things he said helpful too.
Oh, good, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love that you said the me is playing God or trying to play God, because I feel that in myself,
Yeah.
I've thought that for a long time, so thank you for expressing it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's the whole thing. And if the me was God, it would be a great plan. But the me is not God.
I just
Now you tell me.
Again, we're just
But
using
the
this
me,
word God, Go ahead.
but the me trying to be God is where, for me, is where the suffering is.
Yes.
well, you said the magic word knowing. You can, without knowing, what do you know?
Nothing.
So after we finish, right, I'm going to go in the kitchen and make dinner. I notice that there's nothing really for me to think about. My body somehow knows where the food is in the fridge, and it'll take it out and put it on the counter and start assembling the meal all by itself. You may be surprised that you don't need to think hardly at all.
And if you do need to think, that will happen by itself too.
Yeah. But you tell me what, and again, it's personal. This has to land for you. How do you feel? What feels when there's thoughts spinning, or when there's just silence? Any last comments or questions before we close out this evening?
I think that Joan should bring enough food for all of us next time. Okay?
And I'm glad we got all our times straightened out this week. We have
Yeah.
our Aussies back with us.
Yeah. So the thing is, you can't get this right and you can't get it wrong. Right? The me is always trying to get it right.
Hmm.
But those are judgments. Who knows how do you know what's right and wrong? It's just a resonance. I'm telling you, this whole thing just spontaneously, there's just a resonance, which I can't really explain it, but like, it's a lot less work. Thinking is a lot of work and it's energy draining. And I got to tell you, I need, I like to get all the energy I can get. I think that's normal. We're energy, and energy craves energy. Energy eats energy. That's why all bodies eat, there's other bodies. I mean, if you think about it, everything is eating everything else. Germs, bacteria, we're eating animals. Animals are eating other animals, or we're eating plants. Everything is energy wanting more energy so it can survive. And so by being silent, you may find you have more energy because you're not burning up all that energy rehashing and thinking and driving yourself into a tizzy. It's exhausting. And then you got to go reach for the bottle. Huh. You can still reach for the bottle, but you just don't need to spin to do it. Was not looking at you, Faith.
No.
Oh God, you guys are so beautiful. There's nothing wrong with you, nothing at all. So beautiful. Love you guys so much. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Have a great, great afternoon, rest of your day. Those of you who sent donations, thank you so, so much. They're greatly appreciated. And I'll get this up on YouTube in the next 24 to 48 hours. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Dory.
everybody.